going to take us to 2009.
Oh, great.
Movie I'm going to choose is Law Abiding Citizen. This is directed by F. Gary Gray, who is kind of a journeyman filmmaker. He's made some good ones. He's made Friday.
Oh,
He directed
Friday?
Set It Off, Straight Outta Compton, and also directed the 8th Fast and Furious movie.
No shit.
Yeah. This is filed under Torture for Justice. It's nestled in right next to the torture porn section.
Alongside another, well, I was going to say another Joel Schumacher movie, A Time to Kill, but maybe that one doesn't fit quite as well.
That's Murder for Justice.
Murder for Justice, yeah.
Here's the back of the box. A frustrated man decides to take justice into his own hands after a plea bargain sets one of his family's killers free. Tongue twister.
Yeah.
He targets not only the killer, but also the district attorney and others involved in the deal. Tagline, the system must pay. It's basic. It's a B. It's a solid B.
It's a B.
It's a B.
Maybe a B minus. I don't know. I feel like given all the batshit crazy stuff that happens in this movie, they could have found maybe something a little bit more creative.
But you know what? I mean, I don't want to get in too much into tagline philosophy, but like when it comes down to it, I want it to be simple and descriptive.
Yes.
More than anything. Like if they tried to be too creative with this one, it would have gone completely off the rails.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
As you can tell from the box, this is a Revenger starring Jamie Foxx as a prosecutor and later the district attorney, and Gerard Butler as the title character whose family was killed in a home invasion.
Yeah.
Seemingly random. They don't really say.
No, it happens fast without a lot of explanation, and boom.
We don't get to know anybody. Everyone's just dead.
Yeah.
Fox, in prosecuting the case, he cuts a deal with one of these killers that lets him off with a lighter sentence, and in return, it sends the other guy to death row. And then Gerard Butler is like not down with this whatsoever.
Can't blame him.
Well, especially since the guy who cut the deal was seemingly the worst of the two.
Yes.
From what we see at the beginning of the movie. Again, we don't see a whole lot, but we saw enough to know that the guy who's getting out is the worst guy.
Yeah.
So when the story picks up 10 years later, Gerard Butler has like begun to execute his revenge. And his plan is way more thorough than you would think.
Yes.
Maybe too thorough.
I mean, we don't need to get too deep into plot holes,
Yeah.
but you know, this reminded me a lot of The Dark Knight, where
Okay.
you know the villain needs to kind of get caught in order for this elaborate plan to unfold, and boy, like the planning that went into it is elaborate is putting it lightly.
Yeah, I mean you're 100% right about that.
Yeah.
But I think we can take it a step further.
Okay.
Like the big question, like going back to the beginning, like was any of this necessary? because Jamie Foxx seems to be really bad at his job, potentially terrible.
Not great. He seems to have a good work ethic, but that is maybe as far as it goes.
But the deal he makes with this killer is like not a good one.
No, the guy gets off like 3 years.
There's no reason to be doing this.
No.
I mean, the deal he makes is based on the fact that Gerard Butler's testimony will not be believable because he blacked out after he was beaten across the face. There's not a jury in the fucking world that wouldn't believe everything that guy said.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean?
And you can still tell enough of the story that it's like, well, these guys are guilty.
Right. You know, he'd be like, I saw both of those guys in my house, and now my wife and daughter are dead. Right. End of case.
They're
it's
not my
over.
friends.
You don't need to make a deal.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they were both there. Like what is it? Like what's the? I mean, what? But it's also like you need that to happen for for the movie to happen. So like I get that. So like, but also Gerard Butler is absolutely right in being pissed off at these people.
100%.
So
yes.
I guess in that sense it does work.
Right.
But like it doesn't make any sense that and then he gets caught shaking the guy's hand.
Not a good look.
Like, not a good look. Why are you within 20 feet of that guy?
Yeah.
So, like, the entire premise, it hinges on an absolutely ridiculous decision by our protagonist, Jamie Foxx.
Yes.
But this is a movie that's not afraid to go there.
No.
Not at all.
I was shocked.
I was too. I did not know what I was getting into.
Neither did
I saw thriller, Jamie Foxx, Gerard Butler. Seems fun.
And for our customers who associate Gerard Butler with, the action hero that dads can relate to. This is before that.
Yes. Apparently, he was going to be the Jamie Foxx character because he produced this movie, and at some point he switched. I don't really know why, but yeah, he's not the hero in this movie, and you're kind of led to believe he would be. But when he goes after the killers, we're definitely with him at first.
I thought that this was a poor choice for this theme because I was like, this is a Gerard Butler movie, and it's not. It's
but even when he's like, so the first guy dies in the electric chair that he like makes more miserable or whatever.
Yeah, he kind of sabotages it.
But then even when he starts chopping the second guy up into like little bits, like even then it's like, well, okay, I don't think he should be doing this.
Yeah.
But I understand.
I get it, Gerard.
I understand. But that's also the moment when you're like, okay, this guy is like way off the rails.
Yeah.
There's a number of jarring and super violent kills. This was during the Saw era, the torture porn era of movies,
and you can feel it.
Yeah, and like I wasn't into that. Like I haven't really seen a lot of those movies.
No, I saw the first Saw. I never went back to any of the others. I remember seeing the Hostel movies, and from that I knew I don't need torture.
Yeah.
It's not gonna scare me.
But even like, but I wouldn't say like a lot of the violence here is torture though. There's just some like straight up people getting their head blown off out of nowhere and just crazy stuff. So it's not like necessarily torture porn, but there's a little bit of that, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
The original cut of this movie was going to be NC-17.
No shit.
And they had to cut it down for an R rating, but we do have the uncut version here at the store on Blu-ray.
Okay, good.
Which I have not seen. I've only seen the R version.
Theater of the mind. I can fill in blanks.
And needless to say, this is not your run-of-the-mill Friday night thriller. But the premise and the plot suggests that Gerard Butler is the protagonist here because he's getting revenge against the system that has like done his family wrong. But as the story unfolds, the dynamic flips very much. He starts dismembering people.
Yes.
Have you seen Death Wish?
Yes. Wait, you're talking about the new one with
no,
Bruce Willis?
the old one, the original.
No. I've seen those.
So like this could have easily gone in that way, where the police are like, we're going to look the other way. We're going to let you do what you do. And even there's a moment where Jamie Foxx is interrogating Gerard Butler, and you're like, okay, cool. Like he like turns off the recorder. He's like, we get it, bro.
I'm a level with you.
Yeah. I mean, like, like we're like, I'm a cop. I had to arrest you, but like, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then you're like, cool. I see where this movie's going. Like, they're going to figure out a way to like get him out. Like, no, that's
not at all.
and he's just like, I sent this video to your son. That's like that. The moment that the son gets that video of the dismemberment.
Yeah. I think it's the daughter, but
the daughter. Yes, sorry.
But nevertheless.
It's like an 8-year-old watches a dismemberment video. I'm like, oh, this movie is not fucking around. So.
Well, while we're on that subject, there is something I got to call out because, obviously this movie is not a comedy.
No.
But there is one scene that I played back more than once because I could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
And it's shortly after they're piecing together who Gerard Butler is, and they recognize that he's responsible for some fucking gruesome murders. And Jamie Foxx's assistant is debriefing Fox on this guy's background, and she mentions that he's known for gizmos.
Yeah.
And she says gizmos, and it's supposed to be a serious conversation, but I could not. I mean, it broke me.
Yeah, it makes it. There's also that scene in like the tunnel where they have the deep throat guy that comes in. And he's
Michael Kelly, yeah,
and he's like, you're never gonna catch him, blah blah blah. Like that was like so obviously thrown in afterwards, or like we need to make him seem like there's a reason that he can do all this stuff.
Oh right,
clearly like it doesn't fit with any of the rest of the story.
No,
like there's no other part of this story that says like, oh yeah, he works for the CIA or the whatever.
I might have preferred it if he was kind of an everyman that had just some he was a tinkerer, and managed to do all this stuff on his own, not some
that definitely was the first version of the story. Then at some point, some studio executive is like, the people aren't going to believe it.
Right.
We gotta have a CIA component to this.
I can't blame that rationale, but I wish they would have found a better way to handle it in the movie.
But yeah, it's a brutal, intense thriller. It's I'm gonna say it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're looking for a gnarly revenge flick with some torture porn elements, with fucking Jamie Foxx and Gerard Butler, you could do a lot worse than this.
Yes.
So it's going on the staff recommendation shelf this week for the topic of title non-protagonists.
I would not have watched this on my own, and not for any good reason. I think whether I've planned to or not, I've steered clear of the Gerard Butler trajectory and renaissance that he's having.
That's a mistake.
I'm
going to say that.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this just kind of fit into that category for me, even though it's actually not.
It's actually not one of those movies. But
Yeah.
the movies he's making that are like 90s action thrillers, they're like 3.5-star movies, like across the board.
Yeah.
You know, they just get the job done.
Right. Well, this was still a fun watch, and yeah, very unexpected for me, and well, I'm eager to see what our customers think. I'm going to 1997's Gattaca, plucked from the Please Don't Let This Become Our Actual Future section of the store. I adore this movie. It's my absolute favorite type of science fiction. Not concerned with flying cars or imagining what technology is going to look like in a few decades. It has a story to tell in what feels like the not too distant future. And everything from like the retro futuristic art direction, the buildings chosen for the set, everything about this world all contribute to making this feel pretty timeless.
It's like an Art Deco future.
Yeah. So let me give us the back of the box. It says, in a future society, in the era of indefinite eugenics, humans are set on a life course depending on their DNA. Young Vincent Freeman is born with a condition that would prevent him from space travel, yet he is determined to infiltrate the Gattaca space program. Tagline here is, there is no gene for the human spirit.
Let's do another draft of that, guys. Come on.
Try again. So this has some things in common with some previous films that I've brought to the shelf. It stars Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, which we saw both of them in Tape, which I recommended a month or so ago.
Yeah.
It was also written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who wrote The Truman Show.
He sure did.
Which you recommended for our obsession theme. So Back of the Box is pretty accurate at teasing what's happening here, but what this movie is really about is one man's mission to prove that he's every bit as capable of achieving his dream as his genetically engineered counterparts who are all but guaranteed an opportunity to pursue whatever they want in life, you know?
Yeah.
Hawke's character was born naturally without the help of genetic manipulation. Most of the other people in this world, especially the upper class, are able to ensure that their children are born genetically superior without, predisposition to cancer or anything like that. But it's
heart problems.
Heart problems. I think there's a doctor at the beginning who positions it as like, we're not really like, stacking the deck. It's more like, you're giving your child the best versions of yourself.
Well, I mean, his sales pitch was good.
Yeah, it is really good.
It's hard to argue with what he's saying.
Right.
It's like if you're having a child and you're like, listen, I understand you might have some reservations about this technology and whatnot, but like, if I can guarantee you that your son or daughter is not going to have a cancer, or they're not going to have have to need heart surgery in the first 40 years of their life, if I can guarantee you those things, why wouldn't you do it?
Right. I mean, it'd be hard to say no to.
Yeah, it'd be impossible.
Yeah, I agree. So people like Ethan Hawke's character in this movie are referred to as invalids, and generally they're relegated to menial jobs like janitorial work. He's able to penetrate the world of the elite by assuming the identity of a man who is perfect in every way, if not for the fact that he's handicapped. And the rest of the film is about following Hawke's attempt to become an astronaut under the guise that he is someone who he actually isn't.
He goes through it. He does a lot of work to make it happen.
Oh my God, yeah. But they make the point, and it's validated by how the movie unfolds that it doesn't even really matter if you look like the person you're pretending to be because, as long as you can pull it off with a blood test or, some sort of DNA evaluation, nobody's going to question it. They just assume that these people are who they are. And yeah.
It's like as soon as someone can hack a Face ID system,
right,
then no one's going to question it. It's like, look, it's facial recognition. I pass.
The thing says I am who I am.
Yes.
Yes. So competition is here in two ways. In one sense, Ethan Hawke's character of Vincent is competing with society's insistence that only genetic engineered people are able to be astronauts or, athletes or these, elite roles in life. But it's also about Vincent competing with his younger brother, who, unlike him, is genetically engineered. So, it's a new take on a sibling rivalry, which I find pretty interesting. So why did I choose this? Like I said, I love this brand of science fiction. It's a provocative story, and it's a lot closer to being, I think, a reality in 2023 than it was in 1997.
There's not a lot here that isn't possible now.
Right, which is frightening. I don't think that the story they're telling here is that far off. I also really love the score in this movie. So it comes to us by way of Michael Nyman. It's very present throughout the film. Truly beautiful. But I love how genuinely personal Vincent's quest is to become an astronaut. It supersedes love. It takes precedence over family. It takes over Vincent's entire life. I mean, you made mention of that at the beginning. I mean, he really has to go through a transformation to become this other person. And it goes beyond just...
it's a hassle.
Yeah,
he's got
every
the blood
day.
thing on his fingers and this and all the
scrubbing his body of
and with the
dry
thing
skin every
on the
day.
keyboard. He's vacuuming his keyboard constantly. And
He's trying to hide.
It's not worth it. Sorry, bro. It's not worth it.
Space is just dark and empty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do admire the dedication, and I believe that he's as passionate about this as he must be.
It's true determination.
It is. Cast here is great. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, Jude Law is awesome. Gore Vidal, Ernest Borgnine. We mentioned Alan Arkin. They're all here. Roger Ebert loved this. He said, "This is one of the smartest and most provocative science fiction films I've seen. A thriller with ideas." But I was most intrigued by the review from a molecular biologist by the name of Lee M. Silver. He said, "Gattaca is a film that all geneticists should see, if for no other reason than to understand the perception of our trade held by so many of the public at large." Which, I mean...
So he's working on this right now.
Oh, absolutely. He's probably done.
Yeah. I had a couple thoughts about this.
Yeah, I'm curious.
First of all, he's still using like a genetic basis to get where he's going. Right? Like, he didn't change the world into a meritocracy and then he ascended to the top.
You're saying that he was already someone who would be eligible for this job if not for the fact that the world had kind of decided we're only going to choose the genetically elite?
No, I mean the opposite. I mean, like, he's using genetic information to get his position the same way everybody else is.
Yeah.
So... the world didn't change into a meritocracy and then he was the best.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. He didn't do that. He just used someone else's genetic information to pretend that he was one of the others.
That's true.
Like, obviously, it made, they showed that, like, oh, he's excelling at this and that and whatever, but still.
Yeah.
He just wasn't failing. When you have those genes, as long as you reach a threshold, you're in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he reached that threshold.
Yeah.
Barely, it seems.
Indeed.
Also, my main thought about this movie is there's a lot of piss in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much piss. Like, the climactic plot point hinges on a cup full of piss being tested by a guy, and he's like, it's good. Or he's like, I'm just going to pretend it's good. Like, there's so much piss in this movie. It's amazing.
There's a lot of piss. And I saw a review on Letterboxd that I didn't actually pull, but somebody made the point that the plot seems to hinge on one man's admiration of Ethan Hawke's dick.
That's true. I forgot him. Yeah, he's like, I like you. I like your dick. And you know what? Your piss
Yeah.
Doesn't smell too bad.
I'm
you think
okay
they'd
with
have
it.
a better, like, because these guys are testing so much piss all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You'd think they'd have a way to test it where you didn't have to, like, have your face in it. But, like, these guys have, like, literally, like, a big, giant, wide-ass beaker full of piss constantly. And they're sticking their hands in there with the little, you know, the dropper. Anyway, that's
A lot
like,
of piss.
I couldn't believe it. And then, to have the movie, you know, climax on a big goblet full of piss, I was like, this is too perfect.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good. I love that kind of science fiction too.
Well, this comes in at a 3.7 on Letterboxd. It is a 5-star movie for me, in spite of all the piss. I do love it, so I'm putting it on the shelf, right atop Glengarry Glen Ross.
Fantastic. All right. I'm going to clean myself up here a little bit.
Yep. You don't want any DNA all over the place here.
So, my next movie is from 2008. The title is Wanted, which doesn't mean a whole lot. This is filed in the self-care section. Here's the back of the box. Doormat Wesley Gibson discovers that his recently murdered father, who Wesley never knew, belonged to a secret guild of assassins. After a leather-clad sexpot drafts Wesley into the society, he hones his innate killing skills and turns Avenger. Tagline, choose your destiny.
Bad tagline.
Bad tagline, just bad. Wanted stars James McAvoy, Morgan Freeman, and Angelina Jolie, which is a cast that'll catch your eye.
Don't forget about Terrence Stamp.
Yeah. When you see the cast and you're like, I could be into this.
Yeah.
This is the genre I like.
Sign me up.
That's how I got tricked into watching it. I was like, wait, 2008? Like, how have I not heard of this movie with this cast,
Right.
with this plot line? Well, you find out pretty quick, I think. But before we go any further, I do have to acknowledge that this was like very much a hit. I'm in the minority opinion here.
You are, yes, in a minority opinion, and I suspect that both of our second movies tonight are instances where you and I will disagree with one another on our interpretations of this film. But I'm going to withhold. I'm going to let you go.
Well, this has a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
2.9 on Letterboxd. But most surprisingly, this grossed $342 million.
That's a buttload of money.
Yeah, now worldwide, it was like 135 in the U.S.
Yeah.
So it was like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
2008 for a movie that I'd never heard of. I don't know how I just
Not a franchise film, completely original. Yeah.
So this movie starts off on the absolute wrong foot with a completely insane title screen. I just want to read this off. 1,000 years ago, a clan of weavers formed a secret society of assassins. They silently carried out executions to restore order to a world on the brink of chaos. They called themselves the Fraternity. I mean, what the fuck is that about?
I did have to rewind this and rewatch the title sequence because I was like, I'm sorry, what? Weavers?
I have
1,000
multiple
years ago?
questions about every single sentence of that paragraph. Every single sentence of that paragraph, I just have so many things to ask. And the movie doesn't get back to any of that.
None.
Doesn't address it whatsoever. Then it moves on to one of the next giant red flags, which is a voiceover.
Oh, yeah.
And when you start your movie off with a voiceover, it's not usually a good sign. They're hard to make work anyway. Every so often, you get a Goodfellas or something, but it's pretty rare. But it's really bad when it's along the lines of like, you're probably wondering why I'm So this movie starts off, in my opinion, as badly as you could possibly imagine, and then gets worse from there.
When you read title cards that suggest that we've got weavers who started this fraternity of assassins, you have to think, okay, well, surely there's some incredible plot device that depended on weavers being the ones who got this thing started. But no.
Well, there is a device.
Well, there is a device.
Which I want to get to, but yeah. But no, it has. They don't even mention the weaving at all, or why it happened.
Yeah, it could have literally been blacksmiths. Any profession from 1,000 years ago.
Yes,
would have made sense.
Clan
but they chose weavers.
Why weavers? Also, like a world on the brink of chaos. What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by that? And how does doing executions keep the world from falling into chaos?
Right.
You know, where do you like? What is any of this about? I mean, it makes no sense. But then, you know, the first 15 to 20 minutes are just this like blatant ripoff of The Matrix and Office Space and Fight Club. It's like somebody in 1999 had been watching all of these movies and was like, I'm going to write a script. And they wrote the first 15 to 20 pages. They're like, I'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they just put it all in there. They even had the red fucking stapler. Like we wouldn't notice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they had like the office lady and they had the cubicle thing like they did in The Matrix. Like everything was just like ripped off from something else. You know, it was like kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, it's blatant.
It's like they thought we hadn't seen those movies.
I know. Yeah.
And then they so the fraternity recruits through Angelina Jolie recruits James McAvoy supposedly to avenge the death of his father, who he doesn't even know exists. Like he's like, I thought he died 30 years ago or whatever, right?
Right.
But this is when we learn what his superpowers are and everybody else in the fraternity, which is that their heart beats fast sometimes. That's their superpower.
Apparently.
Their heart beats fast sometimes, which makes them awesome at everything and able to bend a bullet in flight. And none of this is explained.
No.
Not whatsoever.
I also find it peculiar that they landed on the term fraternity for this group of people when Angelina Jolie is one of the key members. You could have called it anything. Nothing depended on this being a fraternity, and yet here they are.
Well, you know, it got named a long time ago, back when women were not allowed to be weavers. Which so they
obviously I shouldn't have overlooked that.
Yeah. Well, so you could explain that, but also like it's such a dumb name.
Yeah, call it the coalition or the federation or
even
the alliance. It's something,
just
anything else.
So yeah, so anyway, so then James McAvoy goes through multiple training montages. Now his training consists of just getting the absolute shit beat out of him for hours.
Yeah.
And then he like sits in a hot tub until he's better.
Full of wax.
Yeah. There's wax in it for some reason. And then like about halfway through the movie, they do the training montage again. And it's all the same training. Like there's nothing new he's doing.
That's true.
They're like, no, we got to like, oh, now it's time to do it again. And it's like another training montage. Again, like we're just going to beat the shit out of you.
Yes.
Like, just in a different way. But it's like we wouldn't notice that like they did it twice. And then the way they teach him to bend bullets, he's like, well, how do I do it? And they're like, well, whoever said you couldn't?
Right.
Like, well, the laws of physics.
Right.
The first thing.
Right.
And then I guess they just had extra corpses laying around for their target practice.
Yeah, they don't explain that.
They just have to like, yeah, shoot these corpses. So Wanted sets up this preposterous world with preposterous rules, which normally wouldn't be a problem. I like that stuff sometimes, but they don't pay any of it off. Nothing is explained. Nothing's paid off. Like there isn't some cool thing. It's like, well, guess this is how you really bend the bullets, or like this is what it really means.
Yeah, it's different than suspension of disbelief because I think The Matrix did a good job with suspension of disbelief. It's like, okay, there's something here that we, don't understand.
Imagine if you saw Neo do all that crazy shit, and they never once said like, well, he might be like the person who can like rise, whatever they say about it.
Right.
Like that just happened and no one commented on it.
Yeah, this is just like we're just going to show you some wacky shit, and just go with it.
Yeah, the perfect example of this is the magic loom.
Yeah,
which is, I mean, obviously, the fraternity was formed by a clan of weavers, and so obviously they get their information from a magic loom. But wouldn't it have been nice to know like what that was all about,
Right?
Like where it came from or why.
What gave it its power?
Yeah, it just spits out secret messages in ones and zeros, binary code for some reason, that's encoded in the fabric that it's spitting out. And so, according to the movie, someone has to sit there for 24 hours a day and look at every thread as it comes through the loom. And then after they read it, all it does is tell them to kill people.
Right.
And then they fill out these kill orders that look like a job application from Pizza Hut from 1998. There's like, oh, James L. Simpson on Oak Street. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, is this how assassins deal? Like, I need that filled out in triplicate, you know?
Right.
Like, I need a form filled out that's already like, it's like pre-printed on like a pack.
Yes.
You know, it's like they printed out like 100 of them. I mean, it's just so dumb. But then, like, also these assassins work at the mill as their day job.
Oh, yeah. They're not just killing people. They're also making a living, I guess.
What is all that fabric for?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get Morgan Freeman, who is like, he's like the main guy.
Yeah.
And he's using the loom for his own purposes, you know, because he's the guy that reads the loom and he's the guy that fills out the Pizza Hut job applications, you know. And so it turns out that he's putting the wrong people's names on these forms. But the twist at the end of the movie is not that the loom was never magic and he was just doing bad shit. It's like, no. The loom is magic. He was just lying about what the loom was telling us to do.
Right.
And so, again, this is unexplained. They're just like, yep. The loom's real, obviously, but Morgan Freeman is just a bad guy. And they just kind of yada this away.
Yeah.
And it's just like completely insulting.
So you are touching on a lot of the things that make this a 3-star movie for me. And I think it's a lot of the laughing that we're doing about how ridiculous this is, because I did not know what to expect other than that you hated this going into it. And in the first 2 minutes of the movie, we see a character fleeing from an assassin, and you think he's going to run out of an office building, but no, he opens the elevator to brace himself for a magical leap that he makes through a window across a chasm to the roof of another office building in order to kill everybody. And at that point I was like, okay, I know what I'm in for. And I just...
Do you? What were we in for? His heart was beating fast.
We were in for nonsense.
Yeah. I can deal with nonsense.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I hated all the characters. I didn't like even like the politics of the movie. It's just kind of like this. I mean, not like the personal politics of it.
Yeah.
It's just like this guy who's like just pissed off about his shitty job, and it's just, I don't know. It's just a gross movie. And then, you know what? I was kind of with you when I rewatched it the last time for a little while, like 30, 40 minutes. But then after that, it was just like, really? Like, are they going to really just like not just try to get away with all of this?
Well, I couldn't help but to feel almost the entire time that I'm watching this that Kingsman is the 4/5-star version of this movie. It does everything that this movie is trying to do, but better. And it removes all of the blatant ripoffs of other films. It tells an original story. It still has your nobody off the street that's being trained into a world of assassins, and the
characters are likable, and the assassins are cool.
Yes.
Everything these about assassins, it works. There's nothing cool about these people.
Yes.
There's nothing cool about them.
No.
Like, they have a superpower. Like, oh yeah, we were like drawn into this because because we have anxiety. It's like, are you kidding me?
Right.
That's what this is about. And like, I don't know, Angelina Jolie is like not great. Morgan Freeman, like even watching him in the scenes, I felt sorry for him because it's like, he can't be taking this seriously.
No way.
Yeah, it's just a disaster all the way around. I can see where you're going with it, but like
maybe 3 stars is too high. I mean, this is a 2-star movie.
I can understand if you, like I said, I was enjoying the funny laughing at, like the so bad it's good. See that? You know, we're doing a so bad it's bad.
Yeah.
And I don't really buy the so bad it's good thing where it's like, because that like implies that, you know, you reach a level of being so bad that you've reached good. I don't believe that at all.
I agree.
I think there are certain types of bad that are enjoyable.
That you can laugh at.
Exactly. And going back to this, I was afraid. I was like, oh, did I make a mistake? Like, is this really funny to laugh at? But same with Popeye, man. Like, it took longer for this one, but like it just beat me down. And I just got so angry at it after a while. So angry. And I fucking hate it. And I don't know why people like this movie, but I have to put it on the staff recommendation shelf this week for So Bad It's Bad.
Well, listen, let me be clear. I will never watch this movie again. There are much better alternatives if you want this story. And there's nothing, I mean, even the filmmaking by the director, Timur Bekmambetov, it just feels like a poor man's version of what Zack Snyder was doing at the time and what the Wachowskis were doing. And nothing is funny. The action isn't satisfying. It's not a good story.
Yeah, it's humorless too. You know, it doesn't. It takes itself seriously and it thinks it's cool.
It tries to be funny. And there's stuff like when the main character hits Chris Pratt with the keyboard and the letters "fuck you" pop out.
Yeah, like if you thought Maxim magazine was like the bee's knees in 2005 or whatever,
right?
Like whenever that shit, like then you'll think this movie's fucking hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I think this also like points out maybe our differences in our rating scales because like if I'm gonna say I'll never watch this movie again. Definitely not a 3-star movie. You know?
I'm going to settle at 2 stars. I upon giving it some more careful thought, 2 stars is the right number for me. But I don't blame you for giving it 1 star. I didn't hate it with all of my being, but I did not like it.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to 1988, and the movie I chose is Death Spa. So I threw the one copy of this movie on the roof of the store last year, so it doesn't actually fit into a section. But I'm going to give you the back of the box. I fetched it. It reads like this. Michael's health club is besieged with a series of terrible murders involving killer saunas and other grisly devices. Michael's wife killed herself a while before, and her brother holds Michael responsible. Michael needs to stop the bloodshed before he loses all of his clients. Tagline, you'll sweat blood.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, the tagline is fine. So our listeners probably know at this point that I'm a fan of horror, the whole entire genre, classics, the new era of horror, slashers, ghost stories, I like all of it. I love to be frightened. I'm even a fan of the B-level horror movies that flooded the shelves in the early 80s and 90s. I've brought a few of them to the shelf in the past in a form of Dead Alive and Society. I wouldn't blame people for seeing Death Spa on the shelf and thinking, how could this not be fun? What a wacky premise.
Please explain.
I'm sure it's hilarious.
How this isn't great.
It's not. I think this is a downright bad movie, and I want this time back in my life. There is one facet of this movie that that is deserving of the single star that I gave it, in the sense that it gets some credit from me for being interesting. And it's in the first moments of the movie when we're kind of panning through this city and we land on the spa, and it's a place called Star Body Health Spa. And there's a storm brewing, and lightning strikes the building, and certain lights in the sign short out, so that what we're left with is Death Spa.
And that just lets us know that we're just getting started.
Yeah, it does. I think that's great right there. But it leads you to believe that a good time is in store. But in my opinion, everything goes south from there, and not in a good way. Yeah, back of the box, top line's what we get here. However, it's when we get into the details that, for me, the dots do not connect these plot points. And what isn't mentioned on the back of the box is that this whole gym is controlled by an advanced computer system.
Yeah, that is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, apparently it regulates everything that happens at the spa. People are dying because... Everything. everything. And yeah, there seems to be something awry with the computer system, but that's not the whole story. Something that bothered me both times that I watched this is that I'm fairly certain that the director of this movie has never set foot in a gym or spa. And in fact, his depiction of one seems like he was basing the set design on the description of a gym that he heard from someone else who had never been to a gym before. It feels like we're in a weird office building, but there's also a lot of like Native American decor that's sprinkled out throughout this place.
The 80s were weird.
The 80s were
gyms
weird.
were just kind of being invented, you know? So people were sticking gyms in all kinds of places. So like, who's to say? Maybe gyms were like this.
Maybe.
This is like a strip mall gym.
It feels like that. It is. That's where it kind of exists in this world. So why did I choose this as something that people should never watch? So in a movie like this, I want the kills to be imaginative and wacky, and here for me they are not. I'm gonna take a stab at rewriting the back of the box to better set up what's in store, and I'm curious if you feel like this is a better description of the movie we get. Something's amiss at a computer-controlled health spa. As guests fall victim to mysterious accidents, there's no telling who's to blame. Is it Michael, the dashing owner of Starbody Health Spa? Is it his partner, the twin brother of Michael's dead wife? Or has the spirit of Michael's former spouse inhabited this batshit crazy establishment to wreak havoc on the downright idiotic gym-goers? We'll leave it to two moronic cops to piece together the clues and solve this stupid mystery before it's too late.
I mean, yeah, you're right, but also that doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about the weird cutaways, flashbacks, or dream sequences featuring Michael's dead wife where she appears to be setting herself on fire in the desert.
In a wheelchair?
In a wheelchair, yeah. I don't even know what to make of those. Or the Ghostbuster that Michael hires to investigate the gym with a strange electronic wand.
I mean, I definitely didn't hate this movie. I don't know what else to say. Like, yeah, you're right. You're right. It didn't make any sense, but and like a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's not great, but like it's bad in all the ways that I like. You know, it's silly, it's goofy, it's schlocky, it's cheesy.
Yeah.
Like it's not the best example of one of these 80s horror movies, but it is an example of one of those. And I tend to like those movies unless there's something that really puts me off of it. And you're right, the kills aren't great. But, the ending, I like the ending of the movie. Like that's what put it, like that's what solidified it at least as a 3-star movie to me. Is I like how it ended. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's perfect, and they clearly didn't have a lot of budget, and that's fine. They
definitely didn't.
And there was one decent kill, I think.
Which one?
Didn't somebody get like a thing through the face?
Are you talking about the detective that got a possessed swordfish to his face?
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. No, the guy that gets attacked by the frozen fish. I thought somebody got something jammed through their face. Maybe I'm misremembering.
No, you might be right. In the locker room, perhaps.
Yeah. It went up like through their mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
if this movie would have had really good kills, it's a 4-star movie to me.
That's what you need from a movie. This tries to check a lot of the boxes of B horror. It's got nudity.
Lots of nudity.
It's got a lot of nudity.
The first half of the movie, there's like pretty much always a naked person on screen.
Yes. It's got, it's attempting to make some gruesome kills. I mean, it's trying, but for me, it felt poorly written, horribly shot, not the least bit entertaining, not scary, just boring as fuck. I could not wait for this to end, and I didn't care about anything that was happening on screen at all.
I hear you. It wasn't quite that for me. I think this is the type of movie people think of when they hear so bad it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? If it doesn't work for you, then it's just bad.
I think that for the people who are looking for that, we have better options.
There are better options. I agree. Options. But you know what? Like sometimes you just gotta get them all. You gotta make sure you see every single one of them.
Now, I pulled a 1-star review from a fellow Rewind Video customer, someone I actually watched this movie with the first time I saw it. So user Jeff Laughlin said, unwatchable, so I watched it. Slightly better than Joker. You know, his take perhaps, but not too different from mine. I lied. There is one more slightly redeemable facet of this movie for me, and it's during a scene when 2 gym members are interacting and a woman is showing interest in a guy who's not at all interested in her. And the line he gives her to shoo her away is, I'm beta, you're VHS.
Right.
Which made me laugh.
Yeah, I think he was saying he's gay.
Maybe.
That's how I took it, but I was like, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
it's hard to, because like, I don't know, that was a time of America that we're not that familiar with. I know beta and VHS, but I'm not really sure what the reference is.
I wasn't either, but I couldn't help but to laugh at it.
I gotta say, I kind of like this movie, honestly. And there's a universe where, in the right topic, I would have brought this to the table to recommend. To be perfectly honest. I'm going to take us to the mid-80s, 1985. This movie is... How would I describe it?
I'm on the edge of my seat waiting.
Let's just jump right in. It's called The Peanut Butter Solution. And if you've seen it, you know what it is. If you haven't, there's no way I could possibly describe it to you.
I'm going to take issue with the claim that if you've seen it, you know what it is. Because I've seen it, and I have no fucking idea what it is.
Well, you know what it is, but you can't really describe it.
That's
it's a
fair.
feeling more than a movie.
That's fair.
This is filed under Shockingly Canadian. This is directed by a guy named Michael Rubbo. Don't know anything about the guy.
Yeah.
Here's the back of the box, which won't help. Peanut butter is the secret ingredient for magic potions made by 2 friendly ghosts. 11-year-old Michael loses all of his hair when he gets a fright and uses the potion to get his hair back.
That is the tip of the iceberg. And it's not even an iceberg. It's a fucking glacier under the water.
But too much peanut butter causes things to get a bit hairy. Now, listen to the... Now, okay. So in the back of the box, it says, Michael loses all of his hair when he gets a fright and gets his hair back. That's what that says. That was what that sentence says. Anyway, they mention hair a lot.
They do.
Tagline: a hair-raising comedy adventure.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
They got the brief. They're like, just mention hair. Can you mention hair somehow? This was part of a series of Canadian children's films.
Yes.
Called Tales for All. And I don't know much about this. I'm not from Canada. But according to Wikipedia, there are about 20 to 25 movies in this series, and they're still coming out.
I was hoping you would mention this.
Yes.
Because the names of some of these movies are insane.
I didn't even look at the names. I didn't want to get too deep into it, but...
Can I read you just a couple of them? So the Peanut Butter Solution is one of them. There's also The Christmas Martian, The Great Land of Small, Bach and Broccoli, Tadpole and the Whale, Summer of the Colt, Bye Bye Red Riding Hood.
Wow.
So I have a feeling that The Peanut Butter Solution is not the weirdest movie in this.
Well, I mean, I bet it is.
You're probably right.
But this was a constant rental in my house growing up.
That's so fascinating.
I'm sure that the first time my mom picked it up off the shelf, she was like, oh, the words peanut butter are in it. It's in the kids section. My kids like peanut butter. Sold.
Ding, ding, ding.
But we kind of got obsessed with it, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Nor am I.
But this is kind of like strangely endured in my memory. I saw it so many times as like endless amount of times when I was a kid. But I had somehow kind of blocked it all out until I took a revisit to it, and it all came rushing back.
I've been aware of this movie for a long time because it comes up in those conversations about what was the movie that you grew up on. And everyone has, there's like 3 or 4 movies that people constantly refer to, like Labyrinth or The Never Ending Story.
Yes.
And then there's Dark Crystal. Mm-hmm.
Adventures in Babysitting.
Adventures in Babysitting. And then the peanut butter solution. And I have seen all of those other movies, and I know that none of them are as fucking bizarre as this.
There's no way.
None.
Everything about this movie is intensely weird.
Yes.
And even like a simple plot outline is pure madness. I'm sure the back of the box left our customers scratching their heads a bit.
Right.
So I want to just dig into the plot. I just want to explain the plot kind of beat by beat. So Michael, our main character, hears about an abandoned house that is burned down, and him and his friends decide to go look at the wreckage, and I guess look at the corpses that are still lying on the inside of the homeless people that were living there.
Right.
Which haven't been cleaned up.
Who they refer to as winos.
Yeah. Like the fire's out, but nobody's cleaned up the bodies.
Right.
There's no police, no fire people. So he walks up, he sees something so frightening that by the next day, all of his hair falls out. We never find out what that is.
No.
We assume it's like the dead bodies or whatever, but like that's not how that works.
No.
So then a few days later, when it's clear his hair's not coming back, ghosts show up to his house to give him a potion that will grow his hair back, and the main ingredient is peanut butter. And so are these the same like homeless people that died in the house?
I think so, but I'm not sure. And this isn't even the beginning. This isn't even the beginning of the
first
weirdness.
like 10 minutes of the
Yes,
movie.
yeah.
So like the next day, so they give him this potion. He mixes it up. He puts in too much peanut butter, and but the next day his hair has grown back. Right.
Right.
And it's growing at an unbelievable pace.
Yeah.
So ghosts have given him a recipe for a hair formula, and now it's growing back super fast, like at a couple feet per hour.
Right. An alarming pace.
An alarming pace. And then, like, without a lot of setup, his former art teacher kidnaps him and a bunch of other kids from his school kind of randomly. That's, like, kind of mentioned offhandedly.
Right.
Including, like, his friend, Connie, I think his name is.
Connie.
Is, like, hanging out of the house, and he's, like, talking to the dude's sister, and she's like, yeah, like, we got to find my brother. And he's like, well, my sister got kidnapped, too. And she's like, yeah. And it's kind of like, let it sit there, like, oh, yeah, I heard that. But we got to find my brother.
Are you going to mention why they were kidnapped?
Well, he uses them for child labor.
To make
paintbrushes.
Out of the hair.
Yes. And so, but then we find out those paintbrushes are magic.
Right.
And then, I don't want to spoil anything, but that's when things get really weird. So, like, that's the kind of movie we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And this, to me, I'd never thought this before, obviously, but to me, this was almost a children's giallo movie. You know, there's not a lot of violence or blood, but there is a lot of horror and thriller elements. Our characters are presented with this like mysterious crime that directly affects them. The police aren't any help, so they have to investigate themselves, and then they put themselves in further danger by doing so. And that danger is like real. Like there's this maniac who's kidnapping people. Like sexual abuse isn't like explicit in this movie, but it's kind of implied.
It's not.
It's threatened. I mean, and then everything, like just like a giallo movie, it's just a little bit off, like a foreign movie would be, because it's not American, and it's not only is it Canadian, it's French Canadian. So this is a movie that gives off like genuinely horrifying vibes. Yeah. And but most importantly, this movie is filled with hair don'ts. Yes, there's no hair do's in this movie. It's all hair don'ts. Don't number 1. Don't deviate from your magical hair potions recipe.
Don't deviate from any magical potions recipe.
Yes. I mean, those were developed over years.
Right.
Possibly decades. So, like, keep the recommended portions. And always, like, first of all, like, I know this as a cook, like, learn the recipe first and then make it your own. Learn what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, find out why they told you not to put in too much peanut butter.
Right.
Also, don't put hair growth formula on your crotch when you're a young man. That's a problem that will definitely solve itself.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever had an issue with not enough pubic hair. Like maybe that's not true, but like I can't imagine a human on Earth having not enough pubic hair. Also, don't make paintbrushes out of human hair. For one, it's gross. We agree.
Right.
Also, they look like terrible paintbrushes.
They do look like terrible paintbrushes.
Like, I guess it's possible to use human hair to make good paintbrushes, but these are shitty ass paintbrushes.
Yeah.
It's like curled up. It's like it's curly hair and it's like 4 inches long. It's like, that ain't a paintbrush, bro.
Right.
And then absolutely don't wear a jacket made of human hair. What the fuck is going on? Like, nobody stopped this guy on the street and was like, hey, buddy, what the fuck is this? And explain to me where it came from.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I'm worried that we might need to change the name of the shelf from the staff recommendation shelf to something else.
I recommend this movie. I was definitely having some moments when I was like, oh, geez, like, what the fuck is this? But it just like was so weird, and it never stopped being so weird that it was undeniable to me. I had to give into it.
Yeah. I mean, if the description of the first 2 acts struck you as strange, stick around for the end of the movie.
But yeah, to me, this whole movie is late night childhood psychosis come to life. It is absolutely deranged nonsense. But somehow it completely entranced me as a kid. And I think it still holds up to this day if you go into it looking to just like have a fascinatingly bizarre movie experience. And so I think because of all that, and because like this movie has, frankly, an incredible amount of hair, I'm putting it on the shelf for hair do's and don'ts.
You are a well-adjusted member of society, and and I gotta say, for someone who has watched this movie and grew up with this movie as much as you did, I'm shocked that it didn't leave scars. I mean, there's some stuff in here that I could imagine you being exposed to as a kid, and you just inherit that. Even like little things. Like there's a part of this movie where they mention that if the main character closes his eyes, he can't hear the ghosts, and stuff like that is I could just see it leaving a lasting impression on people, and
it really did. Like it's one of those things that it's like left memes in my head. Like even like the sugar coming out of the back of the car. Right. I was like, oh, that's where that's from. Like I've been thinking about that for the last 40 years of my life, and I just could never figure out where it was coming from. Just shit like that. It's a completely bizarre experience, and but also like it's like we were talking about with Wizard of Oz. I think kids movies need to be a little bit weirder than we think they should be, and scarier, and then they should go into some darker themes. And I don't know that this is necessarily the best way to do it, but like, I'm glad someone's taking some chances. The guy who wrote this movie was like, literally, I was reading stories to my kid at bedtime, and we were out of books, and he's like, just make one up, and I made one up, and like this was the story, and that's exactly what it sounds like.
Oh, that is precisely what this movie feels like. Is somebody who is just making something up as they go
and didn't do a rewrite. They're just like, nope, that's it. It's a movie.
There it is.
Yeah. And I respect that.
Print. Yeah.
And I officially recommend it.
I'm glad I finally had a chance to see this so that I could complete my, catalog of movies that people grew up with and can rank them in my head. I don't even know where this fits off in left field somewhere, but it was an extraordinary experience. I'll say that.
It's a weird one.
Well, I summoned a 13-year-old who ventured in the store and had him escort me to the I heard you like boobs section of Rewind Video for my second pick. This is from 1995. The movie is Showgirls.
It is.
It sure is.
It is.
Back of the box. A young drifter named Nomi arrives in Las Vegas to become a dancer and soon sets about clawing and pushing her way to become a top showgirl. Tagline, beyond your wildest dreams, beyond your wildest fantasies.
All right.
Yeah, not great, but yeah. All right. So, Rob, I chose this movie because I hadn't seen it, and I knew it would fit the theme. I'm glad I watched it. I don't know what I was expecting, but what a ride.
I don't know what I was expecting either, and I'm not really sure what I saw.
No, neither am I. Showgirls comes to us by way of Paul Verhoeven. It's his third movie to make the staff recommendation shelf. No other director has that claim to fame yet.
Congratulations, Mr. Verhoeven.
Yeah, I don't know what it says about us that we've recommended 3 Verhoeven movies, but here we are. For the uninitiated, we get Elizabeth Berkley here in the role of Nomi, Gina Gershon, and Kyle MacLachlan. I think those are the 3 main recognizable actors. And this film is show business from start to finish, following Berkley's trajectory as she arrives in Las Vegas as a broke stripper and then kind of works her way up the food chain to be the premier showgirl of one of the biggest shows in the city. By the way,
quickly.
Quickly. Yeah, she doesn't waste a lot of time. This is a pretty great Vegas movie, I think, you know?
Well, in a way. You know, it has a certain view of Vegas. I don't know that there's a lot of realistic. It has a realistic view of like how Vegas shows work.
No, I don't think so either.
Because she's in like a topless show. Gina Gershon is like this star of the topless show.
Yeah,
that's like a dance show inside of the the Stardust Casino.
Yeah,
and they kind of treat her like she's like a real star who's like come to do this Vegas show at this like
an attraction. Like people come to see her.
Yeah, the Stardust is a shitball casino. I'm pretty sure it was a shitball casino in the 90s. And like the way these shows work, especially like the topless dance shows in places like the Stardust, is like they're sparsely attended and like they give away free tickets and like they act like she's like this giant star that people are flying in from all around the world to see her tits.
So you and I have both been to Vegas many times.
Yeah.
I've never been to a show like this. Do they still exist?
Well, I used to live in Vegas.
Yeah.
And they did exist when I lived there. Yeah. And I attended a topless show. I didn't know it was a topless show going in.
Oh, wow.
Got some free tickets with some friends. We were like, wouldn't this be hilarious to go? And it was a vampire show. I believe it was called Fang or something.
Okay.
And, and then like all of a sudden people started taking their tops off.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not like a high-end production.
No,
but this movie made it seem like it was like if you're in one of these shows, it's a big deal to the point where they're like, when she quits, they're like, "Oh, we'll get Paula Abdul or Janet Jackson." It's like, no, you're not. What are you talking about?
So we follow Elizabeth Berkley's ascent through this movie. There's a lot that goes down. This movie is full of bad people doing bad things. The only character who's truly good from start to finish is the woman who gives Berkley a place to stay when she arrives in Vegas. And that character meets a pretty tragic end. This film, incidentally, ruined Elizabeth Berkley's career. She never really got another shot in Hollywood after this.
I don't know that I'd agree with that statement.
Oh, yeah? You don't think that the film ruined her career? Do you think that she ruined her own career?
I have some opinions on her acting.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think she's a good actor. I think she's Jessie Spano.
So we're going to get into this. We're going to get into this.
I want to get into this now, later, whenever. Like I could talk for 5 hours about her performance in this movie.
It's fucking bonkers. So why did I choose this? I'll be honest, I don't know. You know how some days, occasionally, you're craving like a cheap hot dog, like the $1.50 ones they sell at Costco, and it hits the spot. I think this is kind of like that. It's not good, but under the right circumstances, there's something oddly satisfying about it.
This is a 4-star movie for me.
Okay.
It's too trashy and weird for me to not love it.
Yeah.
But I still don't really know what I saw. And first of all, I don't believe Elizabeth Berkley is a very good actor at all. She basically took the character from the I'm So Excited episode of Saved by the Bell and turned it into a stripper.
Yeah.
And I chose to read her performance, her lack of acting ability as character traits. And so like whenever her character would just like fly off the handle, like inappropriately, like to the point where like I don't think Elizabeth Berkley like really understands what's going on in the scene. I chose to view it as her character just being a fucking crazy person. And if you look at it like that, it's a different view of the movie.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead to some of my feelings on this because I think that we have to talk about this because her performance is insane and also objectively bad. I mean, she's
Yes.
like,
but I think that's the point. I
agree. I think it's intentional.
I think Elizabeth. This movie is about Elizabeth Berkley and her career.
Interesting. So
That's a meta reading of it. That's what I got. I felt like Paul Verhoeven was playing a joke on Elizabeth Berkley, and he would never admit to it. But I think like this all was a big joke on her.
Wow. I didn't take it that way. Here's what I thought. I thought, okay, Paul Verhoeven knows how to make a good movie with solid performances, smart dialogue, and a compelling story. Joe Esterhaus knows how to write one. He did it with Basic Instinct.
Well, debatable about him. He's
had some.
He might have just like cashed in on like one good script.
perhaps. But I don't think that Verhoeven just forgot how to make a good movie when he made this. I think that everything is intentional, and I think you could make a case that this movie understands that the show business industry is often quite ugly. So if you're going to tell the story of a woman's journey into the belly of this business, the depiction deserves to be flawed, bad, gross. Yeah. And it would feel inauthentic for it to be elevated to something incredible when no, this is all
it's trash.
These people live in shit.
Yeah, it's supposed to be trash.
It is, yeah.
It's a comment on the movie business. It's a comment on American life, which Verhoeven is a big fan of trashing.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I think just if this movie was made by somebody else, would we have a different view of it? I'm not really sure.
I don't even know who could have made this apart from a B-movie director who we've never heard of, and it would have been a different movie then. I actually think that Verhoeven's making, this has a reputation for being campy. But
and it definitely is.
And it is. I don't know that it's accidentally campy. I think that it
definitely not.
No, yeah. It seems intentional from start to finish. And this isn't even my favorite movie about this industry. Well, it's not exactly the same as being a Vegas showgirl. There's a movie from 2022 called Pleasure that's about a woman's journey into the porn industry. That's a decidedly better movie than this one. It's trying to be a better movie. This, I think, there's a lot of commentary here. Showgirls is pure spectacle, and it's a movie about spectacle. The film itself is a spectacle.
Yeah, I mean, is it a comedy?
Maybe.
Was Verhoeven making a comedy? He might have been.
He might have been.
But what makes me think that is the sex scene in particular. In the pool.
Yes.
And, and this is why I think that Elizabeth Berkley was like not in on the joke. Where like, I have to think that like she thought it was like a sexy scene. I
wonder,
like,
yeah.
It's not.
Oh, no.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
And like.
It's violent.
Right. And like, I don't think that she's playing it as a joke. And I think Verhoeven was like, yeah, that's hot. Keep doing that. And like, and it's not. And that's why I think like partially it's kind of a joke on her.
It might be.
I don't know how I feel about that, but it's also very funny.
So, there's a lot about her performance throughout, including that sex scene, that had me scratching my head until we learn near the end of the movie that, okay, she comes from a very troubled background. And I have to believe that upon knowing that about the character, when she saw this script, she probably decided, okay, well, I'm going to build into my performance this violence and aggression that
she has a defiant attitude to every line that she says, even when it's completely inappropriate.
Yeah. She's quick to spit on people, attack them, kick them, pull a knife on them.
I was just saying, like, maybe we could hang out sometime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think that there were some wrong decisions in terms of building her character performance around, this truth that we ultimately learn. And yeah, I do have to wonder when Verhoeven saw that.
I mean, he cast her. Like he knew this guy's not a rookie director.
It's true. Now, this was a hard role to cast. They wanted
true.
Drew Barrymore for it. They wanted Madonna for the Gina Gershon role. Most people passed on the part, mostly because of how much nudity there is. I mean, she's naked for most of the movie, and that's an uncomfortable thing for a lot of actresses. So,
once you have Elizabeth Berkley, what else can you make besides this?
Right. Verhoeven talked about her as a newcomer when he cast her, and it's like, did you not see Saved by the Bell? Like,
something tells me he had.
I don't think he had. Maybe it didn't. Foreign markets, perhaps it wasn't on TV. But yeah, I don't know. This film definitely a curiosity to me. I think it belongs in the staff recommendation shelf because I want to hear what more people think about it. I want to keep talking about it. It's
definitely been reclaimed. I mean, I don't know what it is on Letterboxd, but it's got a high rating. Like people have come back to this and embraced it for something than what people thought it was in the mid 90s.
Oh yeah, it's got a 3.3 on Letterboxd today. It swept the 16th annual Razzie Awards, and Paul Verhoeven turned up in person to accept Worst Director and Worst Picture. He was the first director to ever do that.
I mean, I kind of feel like he's like, yeah, that was the point.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's saying, okay, well, you guys think this is shit, but you're kind of making my point for me.
I was trying to make the biggest piece of garbage you've ever seen, and he did.
Yeah.
And it to me, it works.
So one review that made me laugh was from the user Julius, who gave this movie 5 stars on Letterboxd. And he said, the people who think this is dumb are the same people who think Inception is smart. and I do think that it, I think it deserves a watch.
I mean, let's put it this way. I definitely thought about this a lot more than I've ever thought about Inception.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, so it's going on the shelf. If you haven't seen it, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have seen clips of this movie, but we haven't seen it start to finish.
What are you implying with that?
Well, the same thing that was true of Basic Instinct. I think there are scenes that have a reputation that are probably bigger than the film itself, but it's I'd say put it in.
Yeah, I recommend it.
I
think
too.
More strongly than you even.
Yeah, no, I do. I'm not sure I'm ready to give it a star rating yet because it's still very fresh. And
it takes a while to digest it.
It does. Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.